Hey, Reed. Thanks so much for coming.
You're very welcome.
I've known you for a couple of decades, and I'm so glad that you could still be in my show.
Almost 3 decades, 4 years away from 3 decades.
Oh, that's so weird.
This is crazy, but yeah.
Yeah, so this month we're talking about love. And so that the audience know, I would like to introduce to the world my son, Reed Fletcher.
Hey,
There's
world.
the world over there. And last month, I think in December, we had Rachel, and we had Rose, and we had Patrick. So you're the fourth of my children to be part of this show, which is, I'm so excited that you're willing to be here. And I'd like to have you introduce yourself before we get into the love part.
Well, I'm also the fourth of your children, just in general.
Right.
The fourth child. What kind of intro do you want?
What are your accomplishments?
I had a 4.0 in 8th grade.
Nice.
It's probably the highlight of my accomplishments. No, I don't know. Married, 1 kid, 7 months old, live in Arizona, just podcaster as well.
Nice. Fellow
podcaster. Like horror movies. I don't know how deep you want me to go in the intro. But
that's really important because I hate those. My life is scary enough. I don't need scary
movies. Yeah, so does Maddie,
movies.
and that's why I don't watch them anymore because she hates them, so I just have to watch them when she's out of town.
So what did you study in college? And when did you graduate?
I studied business administration. I graduated the day before my baby's birth.
Oh, that was tense. I remember it.
And, well, this is kind of a humble brag. I almost got to speak at graduation. So it's only kind of a humble brag because I didn't actually get to. But I was in the running to speak at graduation, but I lost, which is actually a huge blessing because if I would have had to speak, then I wouldn't have been able to go to, well, I would have probably not gone to speak because that would have been the day that
you had to miss
Jay
your baby's
born.
birth or speak at graduation. Had to live with her forever.
Yeah. Well, we could have FaceTimed from the hospital or something, you know. I'm sure she would have been fine with that.
It was a COVID graduation after all, so you could have done that. You speak another language?
Si.
What language is that?
Portuguese.
How did you learn it?
I learned Portuguese on my mission. I actually really sucked at it right off the bat. I was the worst in my MTC district.
What is an MTC?
Missionary Training Center.
Okay.
So
your mission for
the church. So I guess I'll set more groundwork. I served a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints for 2 years in Brazil.
Nice.
Before you go out on a mission, they send you to the Missionary Training Center, where you learn, the language, you learn the lessons, basically what it's going to be like to be a missionary. And that's where I learned Portuguese. And I was like so bad at it. I was like the worst. Which is funny because you speak Spanish.
I remember in the Spanish class though, because I remember I came to your school to teach Spanish, and you were the worst in the class.
Well, the thing is,
I was a little embarrassed.
I've always had like an aversion to learning languages. It's funny because I'm actually really good at learning. I didn't know this.
It was just your wall.
But I've always put a wall up because as a kid, our cousins all spoke Spanish and our grandparents spoke Spanish, and it really made me mad because I didn't speak Spanish. So like we'd be at like a family gathering or something, and then we'd be like talking, speaking English, and everyone spoke English, and almost everyone spoke Spanish. Just us didn't speak Spanish.
I know, what losers! What a mother you have.
Seriously, I don't know who kept us from learning Spanish. So I would always think like, well, if everyone speaks English, why don't you speak English? You know, which is not even true. Abuelito doesn't speak English.
He still doesn't, yeah.
Yeah, but so I was like, I created like an aversion to Spanish, like made me angry because I was like, it would always remind me that I didn't speak Spanish.
So it's like a mental thing, a mental
block.
Yeah,
exactly. And so like in my Spanish classes in high school, I would always like, I didn't realize I was doing this, but I hated it because it was like, Spanish is so stupid. I don't need to learn Spanish.
I should have known it for free and I didn't get to.
Yeah. And so the funny thing was when I went to learn Portuguese, I was like, actually kind of have a knack for it, but I'd always shut it off. In my brain, like, I'd always be like, well, that's like not, that like I had like a knee-jerk reaction to it. And then when I left MTC and went to the mission, I like actually really enjoyed it. That's one of my favorite things is language. I love talking about languages. I love learning languages. I spent a week in Argentina just like trying to speak Spanish because no one spoke English or Portuguese. You know, it's just like, it's fun. So
That's so cool. Plus, you got to be so good at it that you got to translate it for the piano guys, right? What, didn't you get to do that?
I don't know if that's because I was so good at it, but I was the only person who spoke English at the time.
English and Portuguese.
Yeah, the piano guys came to a mission. They were shooting a music video at the Foz de Iguazu waterfall.
Yeah.
Which is in my area. And so they randomly just stopped at our ward.
That's so
and I was like, I recognize that guy. Where have I seen that guy?
What?
Like, oh yeah, it's the piano guys. And they came in like, yeah, we're just gonna go to a random ward because we're in town. And this was my first area, so I was like terrible at Portuguese. Still, like you're still learning. It takes like 6 months to even, be adequate. And this was like a month and a half in, but they didn't know that. Mm-hmm. So I was just like, oh yeah, for sure. Like I'll translate. And so the whole time I was like, I wasn't messing with them, but I was just like kind of like, yeah, like they said something about, I think that was family, What was cool about that story is at the end, our bishop had kind of the
That's
gall.
Your pastor, right?
Yeah. He went up at the very end of the meeting, was like, hey, looks like we have the piano guys here. Like, why don't you come up and perform? And they just like we didn't do a closing hymn.
What?
And what's his name? John Schmidt, right? He went up and he just like played this like 5 or 6 minute song that he just like made up right then, and it was awesome. It was super
so
cool.
Fun. Yeah. What a memory.
Yeah.
You even became an assistant to your president, so you traveled all over the mission area. So obviously you spoke well enough to communicate with all the missionaries and stuff.
Yeah, no, I think, at least in my life, typically the things that I get good at is because either I have a natural knack for it or I have a natural insecurity about it. And ironically, this was both, because I didn't realize that I was actually surprisingly good at picking up the language and like the sounds and the dialects and remembering the grammar and stuff. But also I was very insecure about it because I had sucked so much at it earlier. So it was like the perfect combination for focus, right? Because you're like, well, I enjoy it because I know that I can be good at it if I practice. But I'm also afraid to be bad at it because I've sucked so bad.
Yeah, didn't want to be embarrassed. So do you have any idea why I picked you out of my 10 children to speak about love? Because this is the second week of February, and we're talking about the idea of family love.
Why?
I like the smile. Why would you just brag about
There's
yourself?
a lot of reasons. I feel like you should have picked me.
Yeah. And it's okay to not be shy about it.
Because I received the most love from you and Dad.
Sure, you're the favorite kid.
My anniversary is also in February. That could be a part of it.
I remember that. Yeah.
No, I don't. I don't really know. I think, if I'm being honest, I think as far as love goes, the only difference between me and any of our siblings is not any better at giving or receiving love or having gotten or received or given more love in their past. I think really the only thing is I'm a little bit more comfortable being honest about it. I think most people don't like talking about love because if you admit the things about love that are hard, it's admitting like a certain weakness about yourself. Like even if you admit that you want love, to a lot of people that's seen as weakness. Like, well, I don't need anyone else. Like,
especially a male brain.
Right. So yeah, I think I'm a little like more open to talk about it, but aside from that. Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure you know about this, but maybe you haven't noticed. But you are probably the most able connector in our family.
Thank you.
It's nice that you're number 4. So you hang out with the big kids, you hang out with the little kids. But again and again, when we're in the middle of anything, you're like, oh, we haven't called Michael. Remember that Christmas Day? And you're like, we got to call Michael. He's in California. Nobody else thought of that. Not that we don't like Michael that we didn't think of him, but you have connected the love to the action. Something as simple as let's do a video call with my brother. Same thing when we were in Australia. You were the instigator. Mom, you call a Zoom call as soon as you could call, and you did that when you came back from your mission. You did that on your mission. So that's one of the things I see, that your role that you have naturally taken on has been that keeping the family, the love, because in order to have love, you have to be connected and you have to communicate. You hang out together. That the love is not something you just feel and you do nothing about. But also, do you remember what they called you in high school?
No, I don't remember what they called me in high school.
I'm trying to remember the thing.
Which thing are you talking about?
Something to do with love. So I
don't know what you're talking about.
In our church, we have different things different groups of people, right, that we teach. And at that time, when you were a teenager, I was volunteering with the young women, 12 to 18, and teaching them different life skills and values and stuff. I'm sure you remember that. And but you were part of the youth group because we would do combined things.
Right.
And one time we had a special presentation with boys and girls about dating. And so you got this funny nickname that I thought was cute. And maybe you didn't even know the nickname.
Yeah, I didn't know that there was a nickname
so
associated
the girls,
with that.
it does help that you're completely gorgeous, but the girls called you, you're like, they called you the love doctor.
I did not know that.
Yes, it was funny that.
Are you sure that wasn't just you?
Nope. I wouldn't have said it about my own kid. That would have been really weird. But so you gave a little presentation on dating ideas and asking girls out and how to be more romantic and how to be more connected. So I just thought that was funny today. I thought, oh yeah, this is the love doctor I'm talking to.
Yeah, that's right. I had forgotten about that. Yeah.
Yeah. But I especially wanted to have a conversation with you about the love that you created in your own family. It's like the sweetest thing to come to your home. Now that you're a homeowner and you have all kinds of really cool things, like you're doing Airbnb. You have such a business mind. You're so open to so many things. And I think that's part of the reason that you're so good at all those things, is because you have a lot of love in your heart. So like you gave the example of the language. You didn't love the idea of it. But once you loved it and you loved the people and you wanted so much to connect with them, you forgot about your stupid wall about not knowing Spanish that you should have known. Do you know what I mean? So pretty much your successes in life, if I can see it, since I've seen you from up here, from the mom perspective, you have connected with people, and those very connections have created these beautiful things for you, because you have chosen to be the organizer, the connector, like with your friend group. Tell me about Riley and Maddie and how those two are connected, your wife and your best friend.
Yeah. So Maddie is my wife. And Riley is just been my best friend for...
Since you were like 12, right?
Yeah,
you were
since 7th grade, 2007, so like 13 years. So it's, a long time. And he is actually how I met my wife, because me and him... for years were inseparable, and he invited me to like a family gathering in Idaho for like a family reunion for the 4th of July. Now my wife is from Arizona, and they have a distant, their grandmas are sisters, so their parents are cousins. So I went with Riley to this, and that's where I met Maddie, and that was years ago. That's when I was 14 and she was like 12. And we didn't even talk or anything, Apparently, what she says was that she had a crush on me because I was older, and I was like, the only boy that wasn't there that was part of the family, or that wasn't part of the family.
The tall, dark, and handsome kind.
Right, and that's a huge advantage to me, because if I would have met her in any other capacity at any other time, she probably wouldn't have thought twice. But luckily, I had the advantage of being older at that time, because like if we would have met now, my wife is like college athlete, gorgeous, like super well-spoken, like all the stuff you would want.
She has her own business, Maddie Made, incredible.
No, she's
designer.
awesome, and me in high school I was just a goofball and all that stuff. So
Yep,
I feel
you
like
were a goofball.
I feel like the perfect time to have met her was when I was 14, because then she still had like the little kid eyes. She saw me as like a grown teenager, so I like swooped in at the perfect time, locked it up.
And then you didn't see each other for years.
And then she didn't have to know actually what I was like. She just got to keep that fantasy and let it grow and fester in her mind. And then as soon as she met me later on, I just married her really quick before she could get to know who I really was. And now she's stuck with me.
Did she know do you know we had free confessions the other night? So that's something we do in our family, which has been really fun.
Right.
And it's really what it is, free confessions. And most of the time we haven't had anything that is like such a problem that we need to call the police, but it's been kind of funny. She seemed a little surprised by your free confessions from high school. Did she know any of them?
Yeah, I've been trying to like slowly, like as the years go by, like integrate more of, my past and my actual personality, so that one day she'll be like, I'm too deep in this. Like I can't leave him now.
It sounds like a tainted past, but it isn't.
No,
it's just
it's
silly
not.
things
It's just
like
goofy
stealing a bag of chips and putting it in your locker for eating stale chips for a year with Riley.
Yeah, it sounds really cool when you say it like that.
So dumb. I'm surprised that I was shocked more than she was. It's like, what? My kid did that? He stole chips from the cafeteria.
Yeah.
Oh, good thing I've learned to not attach my own worth to my children's craziness.
Yeah,
It
no,
took me a while.
You mentioned the love like you feel in our home and everything like that, and that's something definitely that we've done. We've tried to do, intentionally.
Yeah.
But I absolutely can't take even half of the credit for that. It's mostly Maddie. I think generally in a very like linear way, and I like to think about the future and reminisce on the past in that type of way.
Grow from it.
Right. Growth is one thing, and just goals, and not even necessarily positive things like what's happening next. I just like to think as, like where my momentum is taking me.
Yeah.
And Maddie thinks like spherically. So she's very good at being present.
Right.
And so when you talk about the love in our home and the feeling that's there and everything, I mean, that's what she's made to do. She's so good at these little things that I honestly would have thought were almost silly.
Right.
Before I got married, and then, like she's been so good at making this environment and this atmosphere feel like a home.
Oh, that home is incredibly beautiful and peaceful.
Yeah, and you do really appreciate that when you have it. I think a lot of guys think that they don't think that they need that. It's like a good example is like decorations. Like when you go to a bachelor pad, there's no decorations,
Right.
And they're just like, well, I don't need that. It's like all this effort, and then I'll just take them down later. But then when you live somewhere that actually has a good feeling and has good decorations, or it's clean, or it's that, that's just one example. That's not the whole thing that makes it home, but
yeah.
You see
The physical part
you
is
wake
important.
up every morning and like you're surrounded. It's like you're in water that's a different color, because you can't see anything else.
Right.
And when your home is clean and there's a good spirit to it and it's decorated well and there's just like a good environment and atmosphere, it affects you so much more than you'd think.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
it's like a haircut. It's like it's just like always with you. And
other
that's
people
like
have to see it.
that's what it's like having a good environment in the home. It's like it's always it's with you all the time.
It contributes to it because you're not just a mass. You have a mind and you have a body and you have a spirit. And all those things combined, I think that's a good description of your home. And she's highly accomplished. I mean, she's an incredible graphic artist, and she's a wonderful mother. And she still takes the time to make you like cinnamon rolls and like make you dinner and homemade everything. And I'm like, Maddie.
Well, she's so funny.
That's amazing.
Like for Christmas, we're in Utah, right? And we live in Arizona.
Yeah.
And so the idea of not having all of these presents for a 7-month-old baby, who it's
funny.
pretty fair to say that it's kind of irrational to want to have a big Christmas for a baby who doesn't even know.
Yeah.
That's just her. She got all these presents,
brought them all the way
loaded
up
up
here
the car
in
our little Honda, drove all the way down here, wrapped all the presents, put them under the tree, opened them with our 7-month baby, and he doesn't, I mean, I say he doesn't care, and that's only half true. He doesn't have any.
It.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
He doesn't have any idea what's going on, but it's like that type of a person that would do that.
Yeah.
I mean, he cares about that. He cares that his mom is thinking about him,
and you feel that.
Yeah, would take the time to do something like that. So, and we had a beautiful Christmas and everything, That's just the way. Yeah, that's just the way that she is, and it's great. It's
It's very
really
thoughtful.
opened my mind to a way of seeing the world that I honestly hadn't seen before.
Yeah. So I think one of the things that people forget is that love is not just an emotion. That's part of it.
Mm-hmm.
But love has so many layers to it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, even the Greeks define it in different ways. They have different words for love that we don't even have. But I just think it's more of an action. How can you possibly not love that beautiful, kind lady that is constantly making sure that you are loved? And it's easy to love her back, you know, and I have felt such beautiful attachment to her. She was busy today, and I wish I could have talked to her just because she has that. She like literally radiates that love.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it starts like we talked in the first week of February. It starts with self-love.
Mm-hmm.
Understanding, not just loving yourself, but understanding that love inside you comes from the divine. So if we have a difficult relationship with the divine, then we have a hard time loving ourselves. Yeah. And if we don't have those two connections, then how can we love somebody else? When we're still struggling with thinking, oh, is there somebody in the universe that loves me? Yes, there is somebody that loves me. You know, even though some days it feels like we're all alone in the universe. Or sometimes I think we erroneously expect the spouse or the girlfriend or the child or anybody or the friend to provide that love for us. And that's something also that we talked about. It is not their job. It is not anybody's job to keep you satisfied with love. Does that make sense? And I think that's sometimes controversial because people think, oh, I'm marrying my better half. Half of what? You're a whole person.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there are people that never marry. There are people that never even get a chance to have relationships. But that does not make them less or less whole. So that I think that's so important, especially when it comes to like a romantic kind of love, because then the expectations are on the spouse to fill you up. And that is not okay. That is not doable.
And I completely agree. It's like, look at the people that you love. The people that are the easiest to love, and typically it's like a baby. Right?
Yes, they're so cute, and your baby's so adorable.
Yeah, and people love baby, and you think, why? You know, like that doesn't follow the pattern of what we would think about love. Like you just said, like I need your love, and in exchange, I'll give you my love. But one of the weird things about having a newborn baby is they don't actually really give you any love. You know, you think that they do because in the movies they're giggling, but in real life they're just like a blob.
Yeah, and they're messing and throwing up like a baby.
Yeah,
throws
especially
up a lot.
like a newborn, like a brand new baby, and you still give them all this love because love, it is, you know, that's why they call it unconditional love, because there's no conditions. Because the best part of love is that you can give it and give it and give it, not because you want it back. And ironically, what I found is the more I can give it without any expectation of love in return, the more love I get in return.
I like that. So you're growing your love by loving somebody, not by getting their love necessarily.
Right. And I mean,
flame.
I think that's kind of just like a rule for relationships in general. Like even with friends, if you are only being nice to your friends so that they'll be nice to you, anything that's transactional when it comes to love really defeats the purpose of the love, right?
Yes.
And so like it's not, if you're keeping a tally in your brain of you know, how much love you're giving, how much love you're receiving, then you're never really giving love. What you're giving is, you know, you're throwing your fish hook in, hoping that you catch love. And you think the only way to catch love and to get it, because you crave it, is to give it. But if you could get it without giving it, maybe you do that. And that means it's not really love, right?
Right.
It's like...
It's unselfish. Right?
That's not really a relationship, right? A relationship is, it's not like 50%, 50%. It's 100% and 100%.
Right.
I'm giving everything and you're giving everything, and we're not paying attention to what we're getting. Right. And that can be taken the wrong way. Like, I don't mean to say that, you know, there are people that just give and give and give and give, and they end up in abusive relationships and stuff
dangerous.
like that.
No limits.
Right, but at the same time, I don't think you should give love with the goal of just receiving. I think you should just give love because you love someone.
Yeah. So back in December, we talked about, when we were talking about peace, and one of the episodes, we talked about the idea of being completely dependent like a baby, right? That's not healthy for a grown adult. Or being so completely independent that we think that we can make the sun rise in the morning, which is it's ridiculous, right? That just nobody is there, even though some people think they are.
Even successful people are dependent.
You have to be dependent,
Yeah.
you know, the traffic light. I mean, everything around you is dependent. So then there are two choices. So it's like a more of a diamond shape. So one extreme and the other extreme. But how about the bottom is what you're talking about, the codependent. You know, oh yeah, I'll rub your back, but you need to make sure that you rub my back tomorrow. So it's very, very unhealthy. It creates frustration. It creates dependency. It also creates anger. And because you feel entitled, it's like, I just gave him $50. Why didn't he buy me a present?
Look at everything I'm doing. Like, why, you know, I work all day and I come home and I expect my dinner by 6.
Right.
And those patterns aren't necessarily bad because both of you are giving 100%.
Yes.
If both of you treat it that way, like the best relationships I've ever been in are ones where I feel like I'm always trying to catch up to the other person.
Yes.
Like, oh my gosh, they're so much better than me. They give so much more than me. I like them so much more than they like me.
Right.
Let me try and be better so I can catch them. And it only works if they also think that about you.
Yes. And so that's really powerful because the ultimate way is to become interdependent, right? So you're both giving 100%. But the thing that those other three have in common, I being dependent is all about me. You serve me, you know? And then the other one being extremely independent is I serve myself. And then the bottom one being I serve you so that you can serve me. But the one you're talking about is more like we serve each other and give our best so that we can improve the world around us. It's not about you. It's not about me. It's about giving our best to society.
Yeah, it's like your right leg and your left leg. Like we are one. We're as a couple, we move forward together into the world.
Right.
And so what's best for my wife is best for me.
You're a team.
Right. And so it's like your right leg is not going to be like wants to do more than your left leg, because if that's the case, then you're not going to run in a straight line. Right?
You're off balance. Yeah.
And I really think that's the way it is. Like it feels so much better to give love than to receive love. And it has to do with neediness, you know, like the people that are the most needy, neediness is actually a very selfish thing. The people that are the least needy are the ones that are actually giving the most to the relationship, right? And this is the same, like if you're trying to get someone to like you, even in like the dating world, you think, like you see this all the time. It's fun. I don't know if this is like off tangent from what you're talking about.
No, that's okay. Love doctors speak.
Like when you're dating and you're trying to get someone to like you, one of the most common mistakes is like, let me just like be anything that they need.
Right. Melt into a...
Like, oh my gosh, like I love you so much. Like, oh, you want me to be a skater? I'll be a skater. You want me to like theater? I like your music. I like your theater. I just want you to love me. Please, please, please.
Yeah.
And you think that you're giving them yourself.
Right.
You think that you're giving them what they want. But the opposite is actually true. You're losing basically all the value you would give to them if you gave them who you really were.
Because you're not authentic.
People want themselves, right? They don't
Right.
they don't want someone who just panders to exactly what they are.
Right.
You know? And so I think that's the same kind of idea. Like if you want to have two people in a healthy relationship, you don't want to be that other person. You don't want them to be you. Giving love is being yourself as much as you can, and then giving that authentic version to them.
Yeah. So it's a complementing of each other, especially with male, female.
Yeah.
In a family like your family. You know, it's very interesting because you have different skills, different modalities of living. And that's sometimes frustrating to the modern world. It's like no men and women are the same. We're not the same. We're equal.
Not even two men are the same, you know?
Yeah, not even two people are the same in any sense. But we have different opportunities. So I think you've probably seen this wheel before. And that's what the focus of our podcast this year is going to be, essential emotions. And it's put together by a team, some friends of mine that are from doTERRA.
Okay.
Which is they've done a wonderful job. Particularly Natalie Goddard has been so kind to let me use it, and I want to give her that credit. But what I like is that it has 12 different emotions that are essential. But on that we also have the ability to dissect them into pieces. So it's nice because then you can take the idea of love that is so ephemeral. It really is just ephemeral.
Mm-hmm.
Because some people feel it, some people don't feel it. They like we talked through this episode, how do you show that love and how do you do it in a healthy way?
Mm-hmm.
How do you not expect more from a loved one than you should, and how much? I mean, it's a balance and it's difficult. Let me read all of them all at once, and then we
Sure.
can see which ones you like to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Love is gentle, tolerant, forgiving. You feel loved when love is involved, nurtured, and it takes commitment. So I think those are very good pieces to the idea of love. So gentle, tolerant, forgiving, loved, nurtured, and committed. What are your thoughts on that?
The first one that jumps out to me is committed.
Yeah.
It's an interesting thing. I've had this conversation. Like, why do we need to get married?
Mm-hmm.
Why is that part of society? Why do we even have that?
And some societies think it's ridiculous.
Right. And some people think it's ridiculous. And honestly, a lot of their points are actually pretty good. Where they're like, well, me and Susie love each other. We already are intimate. We live together. So why would we get married?
Mm-hmm.
Or even a step further, we have kids, we have a family. But we're, like when in Brazil, it was very common.
Mm-hmm.
And it was hard for me to say to them, like, they'd say, yeah, we're just like a married couple. And in a lot of ways they are on the surface. But I think when you commit to being married, that is such a symbol of really giving your life and stepping into kind of a scary unknown, where the most precious thing to everyone is their own life.
Yes.
And when you're not married, and I honestly don't care if people get married, it doesn't bother me either way. I don't really have a moral stance on it, but I just mean with my own relationship, what I've found is when you get married, you're saying, I'm giving you the most precious gift that I have, which is my own life.
I love that.
And I'm willing to share this with you, even though I have no idea what's going to happen. And I have no idea, what that even means. Like, our lives together could be, like, we have different traditions, we have different ideologies, we have different ideas and dreams. You go to sleep each night with different dreams when you're married, and you wake up in the next morning with one life that you have to figure out how it all fits into, and it's scary.
Mm-hmm.
And it really is. And that's why a lot of people don't get married.
Mm-hmm.
And not everyone even should get married. But when you say commitment, you're basically saying, I'm burning the bridge behind me.
Yes.
We're, quote unquote, stuck. Let's figure this out. Let's make this our life. Because when you don't have a plan B, you do figure it out. And you do, because I think in a lot of ways, a marriage is such a hard thing. Like, I'm only 3 years in. And so I'm just like, I still feel like I'm in the honeymoon phase. But people are married for like 50 years.
33 for us.
Yeah, 33. And, if you didn't have that commitment, if you didn't take that step into the darkness together, I kind of feel like it might be too easy at certain points. Whatever.
Yeah.
Throw your hands up. I'm done.
Yeah.
And so commitment in whatever form you make it, I think, is a huge part of love, because it's giving them the gift of yourself and saying that the relationship is as important as your own life.
Wow,
You know
that's
I mean?
profound. Wow, that's really precious, because you're right. It's your life, the one thing you have. And to be willing to not just give it, but share it, with someone through darkness and light, because you are different, just by being male, female, just by being two different people, even if you're the same gender, it's just very different. So that adds another layer to what I believe, that we are a family forever. That I can't imagine there's some divine person playing with your emotions and gets you deeply attached to these people that you fight with, that you sleep with, that you eat with, that you struggle and you enjoy each other, you know. And I can imagine saying, okay, you're dead now. Bye.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe if we're dead and we're dead and whenever life is over. But if there was a continuation of life,
Mm-hmm.
you know, that talk about a layer of commitment that I know you've made with Maddie. That not only now, if there happens to be another life, you will be with her and you've committed that. So that gives the desire of, whoa, whatever I do in this life is going to go on.
Mm-hmm.
So you have, maybe makes people think a little bit more seriously about
Talk about commitment, you know.
Yeah, how much
like,
am I yelling at this person? How much am I demanding? Or, and I think when it comes to demanding and yelling and fights and all that stuff, one that jumps at me is forgiving. I mean, have you had to forgive yet? You know?
Yeah, definitely. We've had to
3 years
for sure. And you know what we always talk about, like forgiving is very important. But another aspect of that I think a lot of people don't think of as forgiving is actually having the hard conversations to begin with. Forgiveness is painful, right? For you and for them, because what it means is you did something that I need to forgive you for. I did something you need to forgive me for. And in order for forgiveness to really work, especially in a relationship, you need to be able to, rather than having things fester, it's not always like a big event. That's what I'm trying to say. It's not always like so-and-so cheated on me and I need to forgive them so we can get, it's like, that's huge, right?
Yeah.
Usually in a relationship, what it is like my partner is doing this thing and they don't even know that it's painful to me. And I don't say anything.
It's almost your own fault for not speaking up.
Right. And that seems related to forgiveness. And I don't exactly know why, but I feel like a really important part of love is taking really the initiative, having the courage to face scary and hard conversations with your partner, where it's like, hey, you know, this was hard for me. I would rather have this shot of pain today than a lifetime of resentment.
Right. 50 years later, and you're like, I hate you because...
Yeah, like, oh my gosh, like you made me quit my dream and my career, and I was going to be a filmmaker, and you said I had to be an accountant. And then your wife is like, what are you talking about? I didn't know you wanted to be a filmmaker.
Yeah, I just happened to say it.
You just, most of relationships aren't actually like these big forgivable things. It's not usually, at least what I found, like my husband ate my leftovers. I guess that happens a lot, but you know, like it's not usually like events. What it usually is the incongruence of the ways we see the world.
Right.
And we just don't want to talk about it because it's easier.
Yeah.
And it feels like forgiveness because it's not really forgiveness. It's more like just vulnerability, I guess, is a better word. And I find that to be really important for love. But having those hard conversations is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Take the pain today rather than like the slow pain of resentment that builds over time.
I love that. I love that because it kind of reminds me of the first episode in January that your dad came.
Mm-hmm.
Your very, very busy dad took a whole hour to come and hang out with me, which was really kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
So he was talking about reality, facing your reality, understanding your reality.
Mm-hmm.
So is that why you're kind of the idea of, okay, this is my reality right now. I need to communicate it.
Mm-hmm.
It's because we each have our own reality, even if we live in the same home.
Mm-hmm.
And if we spend every day, and you guys work from home, both of you right now, because of the whole COVID thing and because of your businesses being flexible that way. So you see each other all the time.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't necessarily imply that her reality is your reality.
No,
and not talking about it brings problems.
Mm-hmm.
Another guest that I had in January is the mommy whisperer. Oh, I've got to get Maddie listening to her stuff. She is absolutely wonderful, Heather. And she was talking about the idea of creating boundaries. You know, and I think without boundaries, love is difficult because there are some people, and I think women especially Latin women. I'm getting myself into a corner here. If I get any haters, I apologize. But at least last century, I was raised to believe that the role of loving was up to the woman. Mm-hmm. That we had to give everything and anything and please the people, please the children, please the husband, and you don't exist. You are literally a giving blub. And there's no limits there, and there's frustration. So when we were talking about it with Heather, Mommy Whisperer, she was saying, to really be able to understand what those limits are, and to understand who you are, because we were talking about awareness. If a woman is not aware of who she is and what gives her pain and what gives her joy, how can she be a good mother? How can she be a good wife? Even though I did grow up in a very patriarchal society, Guatemala is still very patriarchal. I was there last week. And it was interesting because people, we were teaching some of this about doing your best family, and your best family doesn't mean the mom does everything and the husband just is in charge and gets all the benefits. Because like you were saying about the legs, I love that. You each a leg. So if the wife is exhausted and worn out, are you sure this is a good idea for you as a husband?
Yeah, I saw a meme about that recently that was like, we don't want a perfect mom, we want a happy mom.
I like that.
And it's kind of what you're saying. It's like, well, if you're giving everything at the expense of yourself, what we want is you.
Yeah.
And so if you are not showing up as your best self because you're resentful or because you're doing everything or because you're trying to be super mom or whatever, like back off some of those things. Even if the house goes to chaos because of it, we would rather have a happy mom and a dirty house or whatever, a happy mom and like we don't get to our stuff on time or whatever the mom is doing, like you were saying with that example. We want you and we don't want what you're doing as much as we want you.
And I think it's so interesting. I was at the UN in Switzerland, and some complete stranger, which was a little bit strange to me, came to me, and he was from Italy, I believe. He said to me, I want to know about you. And I'm like, got a ring, I actually took my rings off for my trip to Guatemala because I don't want them stolen. But anyway, I carry a wedding ring, and I was just like, and he probably could sense that I was like, what? And he said, no, you say you're a mother because I had presented something. So he knew I was married and I had children. But I was just like, oh. He said, no, I'm just curious because I see a lot of women that are worn out very quickly. And you look about 30, and I was 50, right? And I'm like, yeah, just trying to pick me up. But he said, no, I'm serious. There's no way you have, because I would talk about my 30-year-old or something. And he's like, there's no way you have that old of a child because you look about 30. And I'm like, yeah, okay, thanks. But what he eventually, if I got over my fear of flirty, and he said, no, I want to know about your husband. Because I have this theory, he said, the women that I have met that look still happy and put together and they have a life and they have dreams and they're in Switzerland doing stuff at the UN, are the kind of women that have a husband that understand them as a person and lift them up and they work together with her. And then we got talking, and of course I said, I have 10 children, which I don't usually say at the UN. It's not a popular thing to say anywhere. They think I'm amazing or crazy, and I'm neither. I'm just a mother that loves her children. Anyway, so I said, no, we actually behave as a team. And that's something that we actually talked about back in December. We're talking to your siblings, the idea of team. So you're talking about the messy house. We've had messy house once in a while, but like last night, we were out there doing a big party, but everybody helped clean it up because we are a team. This is not mom's job, because pretty soon that love starts to become scarce because there's no water in that cup to give. So you can't possibly think, oh, the more I give, the more I give, the more I give. You drain yourself. So it's good for the whole team, to go for this.
I think it's a limiting belief of women in a lot of time that they are the side character in the husband's life.
Yes.
It's like what can I do to support his life?
Right.
It feels like that if the husband's working and the mom's at home because it's like his career and we're gonna follow his trajectory. But it's not really a good way to think. Even if you do the exact same things but you don't think that way, if you think like, well, we're living our life, it completely changes the way that your relationship really goes.
So we have had to move 15 times, which I'm sure you're aware, because you've been mostly the part of the moving until this last move that you were all married and stuff. But you even helped us move to Maryland. Remember, you drove that car with me so we could drive across the country. But it wasn't like, oh, okay, it's Dad's thing and we're going to follow him. It was more like, what is best for our family? And even though moving was the most annoying, difficult thing, and I had to do most of it because Dad was literally at work
Right.
every day, all
Yeah.
day. You remember packing and unpacking and throwing stuff out and cleaning the house. It happened because we were trying to follow not his dream, but our family as a team could benefit from his job over by the White House. You know, who goes to consult at the White House?
It's hard right when you get married
Yeah.
to see that because you're so used to living your life. It's hard. There's almost a fear me and Maddie both had that the other person was trying to get us to live their life.
Right.
You know, that was like one of the tensions that we had in the beginning.
Yeah, especially moving to where she grew up, close to her
Right.
parents.
Yeah, and both of us, you know, like I always thought like, well, she's going through the motions with the things that I want so that eventually we can do the things that she wants.
A codependent thing.
And and it wasn't until we got to the point was like, well, what is best for our family, especially now that we have a baby? It completely
Yes.
changes like,
Yes.
oh, we're our own unit, independent of both of our families and independent of us as a singular person. You know, like the family thinks as if it was one being almost.
Yeah.
And we have to think about what's best for the family. And it's not my life and it's not her life, but it really is like the trajectory of the family is one, you know?
It's our life, and I think that's incredibly mature to think about. So I wish I could take credit that I raised you right. But one of the things
Well, I was listening to Brene Brown on the way over here, and I just stole all of the things that she said. I'm just regurgitating it.
Yeah, Brené Brown is a good one. You introduced me to her.
I read this book recently called Atomic Habits. Just finished it.
Ooh, I gotta read that. I like the
good.
book recommendations you give.
It's by James Clear. It's about habits, obviously. And one of the things they say, he talks a lot about how your behavior is linked to your identity, right?
Oh, yeah.
And they actually have a symbiotic relationship, right? So I see myself as a healthy person, let's say, because my behavior is reinforcing my identity because I go to the gym or I, eat celery or I go on walks or whatever.
Yeah.
And those both happen at the same time.
Yeah.
And so you always have to look for evidence in your life to reinforce what you think about yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so if you think that you're a loving person, that's what made me think of it.
Mm-hmm.
You have to find evidence in your behavior that you're a loving person, or else you stop thinking of yourself that way. And they can happen either or, right? If you start seeing yourself as loving, then maybe you'll start taking actions that a loving person would do. But also the opposite is also true. Even if you don't see yourself as loving, you don't see yourself as it being in a good relationship, if you start taking the actions that would be evidence that you were that way, you start to become that way.
Love that.
You talked about love, and it was an action. That's how you started this, and how we express love, and why we have a good feeling in our home, and all that kind of stuff. And really what it comes down to is what's my identity around the love in my life, and how is that identity reinforced by the actions that I take?
Like it, yeah.
And so, because neither of them can survive for very long without the other. So like, if I see myself as, I love my wife and I love my baby, but I never spend time with them.
Right.
I can keep saying that, but I'm not going to keep believing it. And eventually, I'm not even going to believe it. I'm not even going to think we have a good relationship. So I always think about that. It's like, well, who do you want to be? Well, I want to have a great relationship. Well, where's the evidence in your behavior that you have a great relationship?
Love it, yeah.
And if there isn't, start doing it.
So love is a verb, is an action.
Oh, absolutely. And in fact, I don't even really think it's anything else. Like,
Yeah.
it's an emotion in the same way that pain is an emotion when you get hit by a shovel, but it's only a reaction to the action, you know?
Right.
Like, you feel love only really because of the action.
I like that.
So it's only an emotion to the extent that it's an emotion reacting to the world of action. Because and Maddie always says this, I'm stealing this from Maddie, the opposite of love isn't hate. The opposite of love is indifference, because that means that there's no action. There's no feeling. Like, I don't love that random guy that I saw on the subway.
Right.
And I don't hate him either.
Yeah, you have no
I don't know anything.
attachment.
I'm indifferent to him. And so, like, if someone hates you, that probably means that they are close to loving you, right? People hate their ex-wife because they used to love them, and they put so much energy into that.
They gave their life.
And then whatever happened, now love is bitter and becomes hate. But it's not like, I don't know. It's just like whoever you give yourself to, that's who you have emotions to, because you love yourself. You're giving a little bit of yourself, your time, like you talked about.
Mm-hmm.
That's why you love people. It's because you're giving yourself to them.
Oh, yeah.
That's why you hate people too. You know?
Yeah, no, that's absolutely brilliant. Like I said, I wish I could take credit for raising you, but then I have to take the blame for all the silly things you did in high school and for the rest of the kids that they do all
Sure.
kinds of stuff.
Sure.
So I'll just be grateful that I am part of that love triangle. I mean, that love, not triangle. That sounds negative.
I've learned basically everything I know about love from 3 sources: Maddie, my family, and then Maddie's family. Because so much of what I learned from her, I find evidence from her parents, right? That's why she is the way that she is. And so even other places that I give love, friendship, or anything like that, it comes back to how I was taught it, in the home. And that's really the most important thing. One of the pillars, I have like 4 things that I care about with raising my kid. And one of them is that he feels loved.
Right.
Like I don't care if he goes and becomes a linebacker. I don't care if he makes tons of money or if he's cool or if he's lame or if he joins band. I hope he doesn't join band. I'm just kidding. But one of the things, like one of the big pillars is like, well, he needs to feel loved.
Yeah.
Because he cannot leap into the world of an adulthood without that. So that's like my focus.
And it's one of the things that we talked about.
Yeah.
Being loved is one of those things in the little pedal on my little wheel.
Because if you don't feel like you deserve love unconditional, like a baby, baby gets love for no reason. You just love them.
Right.
And then they grow up and they're a toddler and you just love them and you don't even question it. You're a teenager and like, wow, my parents just love me. That gives you a sense of self-worth. Like you matter for no reason other than the fact that you were born.
Yes.
And so if you don't have that, then it's a lot harder to deal with life.
Yes.
Because you're like, well, if I don't matter for no reason, like if I don't just like matter inherently in the world, then I have to do something to earn love.
To earn love.
Which is why people do crazy things, right?
Yeah.
They are really needy, or they, go on like a crazy diet, or they completely change their life because everyone wants love. And if you don't think you just deserve it by being a human being, then you feel like you have to earn it. And then you live a hard life chasing love.
And it's so hard because there's so many families that are neglectful or abusive and stuff. And that's something we talked about back in January too. You're here. This is where you are, whether or not you grew up in a wonderful family like Maddie and in our family. I'm biased. You can still provide that love and find it from the Creator, that you knowing that He loves you. That's what I think is so powerful, that first episode this month. The self-love that comes from the Creator. And it's so hard. I want to talk to you all day. And I know you have commitments today and you got to get back to your beautiful wife. But would you just finish with this post that you put that just made me cry on Facebook about being present? And you're now and how to live that moment, because I think sometimes we have love, we have peace, we have all these things, and we're just so thinking about some flag in the horizon and completely miss out on the moment of having that little baby and a wonderful wife and this beautiful house, and everything else that is part of the good things in your life.
Do you want me to read it word for word?
Sure. I wish you could have brought your baby. It's the most adorable thing.
This is similar to what I was actually just talking about, right? People that feel like they need to do something in order to deserve love are always waiting to get it because they feel like one day they'll finally deserve it.
Right. But they never really have felt it.
And so they'll think things like, well, when I get married, then I'll finally deserve love. When I get this promotion, I'll finally deserve love.
Yes.
When I make the basketball team, I finally deserve love. And it puts incredible stakes on their life. And people are very anxious. And it's not a bad thing to be driven to get goals. It's a good thing. But not so that you can get love. I don't think that that's a healthy thing. Because then, you end up putting this so much pressure on yourself, and then when you don't get those things, you're like, well, I'm unworthy of love. This is what it says. I've been trying to focus on the now. So I don't know if you can see that. It was a little picture of the baby.
Yes.
Every day I wake up and look at this little man. It's like it's the first day on earth for him. He's not daydreaming on the future or remembering the past. He's right now, always. I feel like every time I blink, he's so much older, and I just don't want to miss any of it. So I'm going to stay with now. Right now, I've got my little family, this sunset, and an angel little man who won't stay little forever. Now is perfect. Now is all I need. It's really true. I've gone into the trap of I'll be happy when, when we have our first kid, then we'll be happy. Or finally when we buy our first house, then we'll be happy. And it's like this little kid has no reason to be happy. He doesn't know anything.
Right.
He has no goals. He has no past. He has no baggage. He has no hope. He's just like, I'm just here and I'm happy right now. It's like the first and last day in the history of the world. It's like, I'm just going to live right now. And obviously there's a balance for that kind of thing. But I just like every day I look at him like, like you don't need permission to be happy. Mm-hmm. You don't need something to happen. You don't need permission to be loved either. And that was a big lesson. Just like be happy right now, be loved right now, and give love right now. Don't think about if you're going to get love in return. Right. Just give love because you want to give it. And it's always right now. Mm-hmm. So if you're not happy right now, you're not going to be happy in the future when you finally get that thing. You're going to be like you are right now, and you're going to look for the next thing. Like the movie Soul. It's kind of like that idea, right? Same idea.
There's no magic moment when life is just going to work. Life is always going to have challenges, just like Dad and I talked about in that episode back in January.
And it's not, and you should plan, you should have goals, you should be driven, ambitious, all those things. And I'm a lot of those things, and I think that's good. But Maddie, like I said earlier, her spherical thinking, it's like, what are you talking about? All the time you took planning your life, you forgot about your life. Like
you didn't like your baby.
Right, exactly. Like Grant actually told me this thing the other day. That was
Grant, your brother.
Grant, my brother. Yeah, he's like, in your pursuit of happiness, sometimes you need to just stop and be happy.
I like that.
And that's like really true. And it's like, I'm like, yeah, you're right.
You're 18 and you have lots of wisdom.
It's like this is it. Like I'm almost 30. Like what are you talking about? There's nothing else I need to wait for. Like this is it that I've been waiting for. I'm already there. If you're not going to be happy right now, you're not ever going to be happy.
Right. It's a choice.
And I think that's the same for love. Like if you don't have a way to show your wife love today, what's the difference tomorrow?
Right.
Right.
Oh, thanks so much. And you're so loving to me. You're such a joy. You were such an easy kid. I didn't know your adventures in high school, but that's okay. You still were such an easy kid. And I always felt so loved. And I guess that post, I just needed to have you reread it because I thought, I remember when you being a baby. Mm-hmm. And now you're a father. And I think we just take for granted that, like the mother thing, like you were saying, the house is messy, or I've got to do one more meal and I got to lose 10 pounds. Okay, that's fine, but live right now and enjoy the love that you do have. Even if you don't feel loved by anybody else, you need to remember there's a creator that loves you. Mm-hmm. And is giving you experiences that you can choose to be happy about or not. Mm-hmm. Thanks so much. Get back to your baby. I appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me. Thanks. I'm excited to see it.
Yeah, bye. Thanks for listening to my conversation with my son, Reed Fletcher, and his love doctor fame. He is so wonderful, and he has put into practice the many things that he has learned. If you want to learn more, visit @peacetoday.com.